Have you ever noticed that silence can be more frightening than any conflict? It's not loud words that hurt the most, but the moments when no one speaks, when the phone battery dies, when notifications disappear, when there isn't a single external signal. That's when the mind begins to behave strangely. Thoughts grow louder, emotions heavier, and the urge to escape somewhere becomes almost uncontrollable. At that moment, you are not just alone, you are unprotected, without familiar crutches, without distractions that constantly helped you avoid hearing yourself. And this is where a question appears, one many instinctively turn away from. What exactly inside you becomes unbearable when you are left alone with yourself? Society has long promoted a simple formula. Humans are social beings. Loneliness is bad. Relationships are salvation. This idea sounds logical and even humane, but psychology has known for a long time fear of loneliness is rarely about love for people. Much more often, it is about the lack of contact with oneself. People who are afraid of being alone rarely admit this fear. They call it a need for communication, emotionality, or love for people. But if you observe their behavior, something else becomes clear. As soon as external contact disappears, the inner world begins to press. Not quietly, but insistently. The myth that needs to be dismantled sounds like this. We seek relationships because we want love, emotions, and understanding. In reality, many seek relationships because they don't know how to be with themselves. Relationships become a way to silence inner noise, not a space for growth. When a person is alone, the brain is deprived of constant stimulation. No conversations, no reactions, no validation. And then what is usually hidden becomes activated. Suppressed emotions, unresolved conflicts, doubts about one's own worth. This is not pathology. It is a natural reaction of a mind that has lived in avoidance mode for a long time. Such people are not afraid of loneliness as a state. They are afraid of encountering their own thinking without filters, because there is no script there, no role, no task to please. There is no familiar me for others. There is only me with myself. If you recognize yourself in this, it's important to clarify immediately. This is not weakness and not a defect. It is the result of mental habits. Habits of constantly being busy, reacting, answering, distracting oneself. The brain has simply unlearned how to exist in a state of inner presence. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "He who cannot live alone will not be free." Freedom here is not isolation, but the ability not to depend on external sources of self-worth. When you don't know how to be alone, you inevitably begin to cling to others. And this is where problems in relationships begin. Fear of loss, heightened anxiety, the need for constant contact, not because you love, but because without another person it becomes unbearable. Relationships turn into an emotional regulator, not a conscious choice. The first step is awareness, not superficial, but concrete. You need to honestly admit, it's difficult for me to be alone with myself. Not, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, but specifically, it's hard for me to tolerate my own thoughts and emotions without distractions. This is the entry point. Without it, further work is impossible. Awareness is not self-criticism. It is observation of patterns. When exactly does anxiety arise? At what moments do you automatically reach for your phone? Which emotions are you trying not to feel? Psychology begins where you notice recurring patterns, not where you look for justifications. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Fear of loneliness is an unconscious defense mechanism. It is not an enemy. It is a signal that there is unprocessed experience inside. The second step is contact with yourself. This is the most difficult stage because it lacks quick rewards. Contact is the ability to remain in silence without immediate action, not to analyze every thought, not to urgently try to fix something, but to allow the mind to reveal itself. On a neurophysiological level, something important happens here. The brain gradually reduces its dependence on external stimuli and begins to use internal resources more actively. This initially causes discomfort, anxiety increases, thoughts become intrusive. This is not deterioration, it is adaptation. Practically, it looks simple but unfamiliar. You deliberately leave small intervals without distractions, not hours or days, minutes. And during these minutes, you observe which emotions arise. You don't suppress or amplify them, you simply register them. People often fear that if they allow these states to exist, they will be overwhelmed. But psychology knows emotions intensify not from attention, but from resistance. When you stop running away, they gradually lose their sharpness. The third step is building an inner support. This is no longer just contact, but a restructuring of thinking. Inner support is the ability to experience discomfort without collapsing or escaping. It is formed through repeated experience. I can be with myself and endure this. This is where the key shift happens. Self-worth stops being entirely dependent on others' reactions. You begin to feel confidence not because you were approved of, but because you are stable inside. This directly changes behavior in relationships. Communication becomes calmer. The need to constantly prove, hold on, or control disappears. Attraction stops being anxious. You are not afraid of pauses and distance, because you know, even in solitude, you remain whole. Erich Fromm wrote, "Love is not a flight from loneliness, but the meeting of two whole people." Only a person with inner support is capable of such relationships, not because they are stronger than others, but because they don't need to use a partner as an emotional crutch. It is important to understand, fear of loneliness does not disappear instantly. It transforms. From a panic signal, it becomes a marker, a reminder to check contact with yourself. This is mature psychology, not suppressing symptoms, but understanding their meaning. You don't have to become isolated or cold. On the contrary, the better you can be with yourself, the deeper and more honest you can be with others, without masks, without dependency, without constant fear of loss. Ultimately, you come to a simple but rare state. You choose relationships rather than need them. You choose communication rather than use it as rescue. You choose closeness rather than hide inside it. And here it's important to fix the main point. You were not created to constantly run away from yourself. Your psyche is designed for contact, not for endless avoidance. When you become a home for your own mind, the external world stops being a source of threat, because the truly strong person is not the one who is never alone, but the one who can remain in silence and not lose themselves.